Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and today, surprise, surprise, we're reviewing Dr. Kawashima's brain training for Nintendo Switch that just appeared out of nowhere in Europe. This review was originally written by the ever-excellent Chris Scullion and has been adapted for video by me, and I do want to say that due to the fact that this game is like 99% handheld, the footage is going to be a bit odd. You're going to see some direct capture, but there's also going to be a fair bit of the whole just sort of using the capture button, because that's all we can do, I'm afraid, and we want to show you proper. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling. Let's dive right into things. It's difficult to overstate the importance of the original Dr. Kawashima's brain training, or brain age if you're based in North America. Even though these days may credit the Wii with bringing gaming to non-gamers via the likes of Wii Sports, it's crucial to remember that brain training was doing it way ahead of that, shifting countless DS handhelds into middle-aged and elderly customers who otherwise wouldn't know the difference between Kirby and a sack of potatoes. Incredibly, that was nearly a decade and a half ago now, and the gaming landscape has changed dramatically, to say the very least. Everyone and their mums is gaming now, partly because we all own phones that contain access to an endless supply of both casual and complex games quite literally at our fingertips. Is there a place for a new brain training game in today's gaming environment then? Nintendo certainly seems to think so, but this new Switch version doesn't really do much to push the original concept beyond what the DS originals did back 14 years ago. 14 bloody years. Much like its predecessors, the main gimmick in brain training on Switch is the ability to test your brain age, which essentially takes the whole "you are only as young as you feel" concept and applies it to your brain noggin. You're given 3 exercises to carry out, each focusing on a different element of your brain: self-control, processing speed, and short-term memory, and the average result is then presented to you as your brain age, which ideally you want to be as low as possible. These 3 exercises in your daily brain age test are chosen at random. Some of these are back again from previous games in the series, whereas others are brand new shiny additions. Not all of the returning exercises are necessarily especially welcome, though. We're always happy to take part in calculations and work our way through a series of maths problems, but we don't imagine there's a person on this earth who asks for the return of the exercise where you have to memorize a grid of 25 numbers and then fill in the empty grid. It's just no. Outside of the brain age mode, there's also daily training where you can keep your brain warmed up with a series of different mini-games. At first, you'll only start with 2 or 3 of these, but each day you complete one, you'll be awarded a stamp, and the more stamps you get, the more games you'll unlock. It's a simple concept. If you play the game on a daily basis, you're looking at around 2.5 weeks before everything is available, or about an hour if you just move the Switch's system date forward day by day. Definitely didn't do that, no way. Much like with the brain age tests, the training exercises are a mixture of old and new. Returning favorites include the Dr. Mario spin-off Germ Buster, the piano-based Masterpiece Recital, which now includes chords thanks to multi-touch screen. Oh, the Switch is so fancy. And of course, Sudoku, which is like just is Sudoku. New exercises, meanwhile, include the entertaining Dual Task, where you have to touch the highest number on the bottom part of the screen while keeping an eye on the top part of the screen, where a chap is trying to jump over some hurdles and avoid birds. Then there's Photographic Memory, where you're shown a photo and then have to pick it out from a group, whilst also trying to memorize a new one. Some of the classic minigames are understandably missing for technical reasons. After all, it's ever so slightly less feasible to do the voice recognition exercises when you don't have a bloomin' microphone in your Switch. However, that isn't to say that the Switch's own gimmicks and gizmos don't make an appearance. Step forward the right Joy-Con and its infrared camera, along with its underused ability to recognize hand gestures. Do you remember that? That was the thing. Instead of shouting out rock, paper, or scissors, this time you're holding your hand up to the infrared camera and performing the gesture as you would actually do it in real life. What a crazy notion. Similarly, another game shows you a series of different hand gestures and asks you to replicate them in a rapid fashion. These are a fun new twist on proceedings when they work, but therein lies the problem: they don't always work. Occasionally, the camera will read a gesture wrong, or you'll be asked to move your hand out of the way for calibration purposes, purposes without realizing you already have. It's usually something you can resolve in just a few seconds, but given that brain training's all about doing things quickly and accurately, wasting a few seconds trying to get the game to recognize your hand can make a big impact on your score, and then Dr. Kawashima says you got the brain of a 52-year-old. The same also goes for some other minigames that require you to write numbers or letters using the Switch's touchscreen. By and large, the game will recognize your scrawlings fairly accurately, but there'll always be the odd occasion where it doesn't quite, and you're held up having to erase it, by which point you know the results screen's gonna say you've now got the brain of a mollusk. Ultimately, for all the success of the original game, the idea that lightning is gonna strike twice may have been a little bit misplaced by Nintendo. Brain training on Switch isn't quite the irresistible proposal its predecessor proved to be. For starters, the Switch is significantly more expensive than the DS was back in the day, so you're far less likely to get non-gamers to drop all that money on what to them was a fad 14 years ago, and it's worth pointing out that at the time of writing, the DS originals can be picked up for literal pennies online or just in shops. It's just, can you see? Even more importantly, consider this little nugget of truth. It's hard to believe it, but the original brain training was released in the West a full year before the original iPhone. When brain training came out, there were no smartphones, and the idea of a touchscreen was still a massive novelty. So when people saw that there was a way to keep your brain fit, and it was on a relatively inexpensive device with a touchscreen, and you actually write it in, yeah, people were eating that stuff up. But not nowadays, it's all on the phones. Not to mention the fact that these kind of quote-unquote brain training games are 10 a penny these days, and sometimes even free on app stores and other app stores. And so even though this is a budget release, it's hard to justify the cost in this day and age. When trying to work out who the target audience for brain training on Switch is, we're just not sure, honestly. The casual audience who may well have been happy to pick up a cheap DS and one game and be happy with that alone are not going to be dropping the best part of 300 quid on a Switch. Or the 200 for the Switch Lite, but then you can't do the infrared stuff. What's here is entertaining enough, but you're most likely to have lost interest within a month. If there was ever a series that Nintendo should have turned into a mobile game, it's this one. Why didn't they?